I saw Licorice Pizza. It's the best movie of 2021 that I saw in 2022. I really like it. You should watch it. But this review is not a review of Licorice Pizza. This review is a review of Licorice Pizza. Isn't that fucking meta and badass and cool and sick? Doesn't that just make my penis sound big? I'm not going to say the guy's name who I'm talking about. If you do know him, if you do see him around, don't say anything negative. Don't be a dick. Don't be mean. Just let's be positive here. Guys, it's 2022. We're done with negativity. We're in with positivity. Except for me. I can be mean to him. It's fine if I do it, but you guys better fucking not.
How do I explain what this movie is about? It's basically about a girl and a boy.
So he says that this movie is about a girl and a boy. So keep that in mind. Keep that little fucking thing in your brain because that's set up for later.
One of the most annoying things with this movie is there is no structure or cohesion at all in this film. There is nothing. There is no story construction at all.
He goes on to say that there is no story. There's no story. There's no story to fucking attach myself to. And he says this despite in the intro having said it was about a boy and a girl, and you'd figure that he'd understand that this is like a character thing.
I cannot explain what this movie is about to you guys. It's basically about a girl and a boy. 1 minute it's about selling girl and a boy pinball machines. Next minute it's about selling this. Next thing you know it's about this and this and this. And it's so hard to follow. It's basically about a girl and pinball machines. I cannot tell you from here after watching the movie what it is about. A girl and a boy. And my friend Patrick and a boy. Because there is nothing there. It's as if, well, my friend Patrick said really well, it's a lot of SNL skits just put together.
Plot threads that are introduced and dropped, you know, they exist for a scene so that a certain conversation happens and then they're not really there anymore. And I personally don't have a problem with that. If somebody does, I guess that's fine. But I don't think that you're really critiquing the film on its own terms because it's not trying to have some sort of focused narrative. You know, it's not a story about how Gary Valentine is a failed child actor. It's a story about these two characters and their relationship, mostly Alana Kane. And then he's like, well, this makes no sense. And it's hard to follow. And it's also about nothing. And it's like, I don't know, maybe you should fucking elaborate on why something is confusing to you. Like, what are the elements that don't make sense? Because otherwise it just seems like you didn't understand what was fairly straightforward. Like, sure, there's like interesting things going on thematically in the story that are complex. Sure, the story goes to a bunch of different places. There's a lot of different settings and locations and characters. But it's mostly focused on two characters and their relationship. And I don't understand how it makes no sense. Because he just doesn't elaborate on it at all. And if you're going to make a review about something, the whole point is to elaborate. If you're not going to elaborate, just give it a fucking number score. Go ahead and give it a fucking 1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. And then, you know, leave a little fucking 2-sentence blurb about it. Because that's all that he has to say throughout this entire review. That's about the most substantive criticism that I will give in this entire review of this review. But yeah, I don't know. Let's just keep going.
This is where it tops off. When I said that this is about a story about a woman and a boy.
Let's go back. Let's rewind.
Woman and a boy. It's basically about a girl and a boy. Literally.
Hey, do you think you might want to re-record that line at the beginning? No, you're not going to do that. You're just going to upload the video with that bit in it, even though it doesn't make any sense because you fucked it up in the beginning? Okay, I guess you can just do that.
She's 25 and he's 15. Yeah. And she dates another 15-year-old in this movie as well and brings him home to her parents.
That honestly makes it sound less bad. It sounds less bad whenever you say that she brought him home to her parents. That sounds like a comedy bit that you're describing right there. She even brought him home to her parents.
And not one single person is questioning what is happening here in this movie. No one is questioning that this 25-year-old is with a 15-year-old.
This is another pattern that you're going to see in this review. He forgets that the movie's set in like 1973, which is a long time ago when people probably wouldn't have cared. You know how today people will fucking reply to like articles about how a teacher raped a 13-year-old boy with like, they'll be like, fucking nice, dude. Nice, dude. That's today. This is a movie set 50 years ago.
I'm sorry. Is this on?
Ooh, chills, dude. Chills. Is this on? Is this on? Did you just hear me? This is in the movie. A person pretending to be 25 and a person pretending to be 15 pretended to date in a movie set 50 years ago. Is this thing on, dude? Is this thing on?
If the roles were reversed, this movie would be getting absolutely destroyed for that.
Let's go ahead and address the big pedophile elephant in the room, that the movie is about a 25-year-old woman in a relationship with a 15-year-old boy. Now, to clarify, they're not in like a sexual relationship in the movie or anything like that. And I think that there is a reason why their ages are what they are and why the gap exists. So one of the reasons why I think the age gap is how it is because I think it's almost a role reversal of films from the time. You know, films in the 70s would often have like much older men getting with much younger women, and that's not exactly the dynamic between Alana and Gary Valentine, but it is kind of similar, and you could sort of see that. But I think more than anything, it is actually intentionally there to like draw your attention. You know, there's a reason why Gary Valentine isn't 18, and that's because if he was 18, it wouldn't be unacceptable and jarring in the way that it is in the film, right? Like, you notice it, you have to pay attention to it, and it's in the back of your mind the entire time. And I think one of the main things that the movie wants you to think about is women's position in society at this time, and maybe even to an extent now. You look at the dynamic between these two characters, and while there's a big gap in their ages, Gary Valentine has much, much more responsibility. He is the primary breadwinner for his household. He's able to pretty easily do things himself. He has a lot more agency in the story than Alana does, despite the fact that Alana is an adult. She lives in a house with her very overprotective conservative father. You know, she still lives with her parents. She's very reliant on them. Throughout the movie, she's like harassed by different older men. It is this movie that is like drawing attention to the, you know, dynamic between men and women at that time, and I think sort of asking you to think about it a little bit. Not to say that like the movie is saying that this is good or anything, especially considering that the last movie Paul Thomas Anderson made is Phantom Thread, a movie about an incredibly toxic relationship. I don't have a problem with it. Some people don't like that it doesn't actively condemn the characters, but the way I see it, this is a movie for adults, not a movie for babies. If this was, you know, a movie aimed at children, I would say, yeah, it's wrong. It's like irresponsible, I guess, to show children like this relationship in a way that isn't explicitly negative. But this is a movie for adults. If you're an adult, you should already know not to molest children. You should already know that. You're a grown-up, right? You should not have to be told not to molest kids. So, I don't know. It's like if I don't know. I mean, I guess if you feel that way, I guess it's fine. I think so long as the movie isn't actively being like, oh, isn't this beautiful, wonderful thing? You know, so long as a movie is like has depth. Like if the movie didn't have enough depth to it, like I think it would come off as just romanticizing this concept. It has lots of depth there. Fuck, I feel like I'm doing such a shitty job explaining it. I don't know. I don't know if I've done a good job justifying everything that I'm saying. If you won't be able to enjoy a movie because it has that element in it, or if that's you hate the movie because of that, I don't think that's wrong. I just don't think that there's no reason for it. Like, clearly there is a reason for it. Both thematically, like within the story in terms of the characters, but like it is fundamental to the purpose of the story that the characters are the ages that they are. Like it would just be a different story. Like if you change the characters' ages, like fundamentally, it would not say the same things that the movie is saying if the characters were different ages. That said, you don't have to like it.
Secondly, there's two scenes in this movie where there is a Japanese woman and a white male.
There's the scene with the Asian women who are dating this guy. This guy owns a chain of Asian restaurants. It's some white dude, of course. And basically, he's a white guy in the 70s. He's very racist. He's having a business meeting with Gary's mom. Gary's mom says something to him, and he, quote unquote, translates it by talking in a very racist accent at the Asian lady. And some people find this to be pretty offensive. Now, the joke is supposed to be on him. The focus of the scene is the Asian women and their responses to the shit that he's saying. But I do understand that this is on some level fundamentally different than the kind of cringe humor that exists in a show like The Office. And while I think that the intent is still like to laugh at him, to mock him, it doesn't accomplish the same goal as well, because on The Office, it takes place in like the early 2000s, right? When people would probably say that that's pretty racist to do that, right? Like Michael Scott can do racist things on The Office, and The Office not be seen as like this very offensive thing, because Michael gets his comeuppance. And even if he doesn't like get slapped or confronted, he is getting his comeuppance simply by embarrassing himself in public, which just isn't part of the dynamic in this situation, right? Because this white dude isn't embarrassing himself. This is what he's doing is seen as acceptable to the people around him. And so it ends up being a scene that feels a lot more uncomfortable, where the dynamic is much grosser than it is in like most shows with like cringy humor. I mean, I still thought it was funny, but I understand not liking that it's in there. I guess I personally think that it's better than nothing, but I'm not an Asian person. I don't know. By better than nothing, I mean better than not addressing racism at all. This is a movie about two white people in the 70s. I think it would be important to in some way address it, even if it's just in a joke. But that can totally be offensive to somebody, and I could see somebody not liking the movie because of it.
Anyone from that culture finds that offensive, I am 100% with you. Because when I watched it, I was like, why? Like, you don't need that in it. You don't need it. You don't need it. Why can't you just speak normally to her?
You don't need it. You don't need to show that there were racist people in the 70s. You can just ignore that.
And then, to top it off, the second thing is, they just go flat out and friggin' offend all the Jews. Just like that. If you're Jewish, you've just been offended by this movie by watching it.
If you're Jewish, you've just been offended. I declare that the Jews have been offended. I declare each and every Jew, they've all been offended now. If you're a Jew, guess what? You're offended. Like, it's just silly. I don't think he's like a shithead or anything. It's just a funny thing to say.
What they do with the dinner table and the atheist stuff and everything like that, and they talk about, oh, you have a Jewish nose.
People were racist in the 70s. And also, whenever he's talking about the dinner table scene, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie. It's just that they're very Jewish. They're just very religious. And a guy is like, oh, I'm an atheist. And they're pissed off because they're very Jewish and he's an atheist. There are very religious families, And if their fucking kid brought a person home who wasn't religious, they would be like, get out. That happens today. Why is that racist? Like, I feel like this guy was like watching the movie and he was seeing these very religious Jews and he was like, they're just making up words. He just like doesn't believe that there are people that are that Jewish. Like he just can't comprehend it. It's blowing his mind. The other things I can understand. This just doesn't make any sense. What is there to be offended about in this scene?
First you offend people racistly, then you go against people and offend people that are religious.
Does he think that like because the character was atheist that it was like against people who are religious? Like does he not know that religious people don't like people who aren't religious a lot of the time? That's so weird. I don't understand how you can even come away from the scene feeling that way. It doesn't make any sense at all.
This was easily the most uncomfortable I've ever felt watching a film. And I have felt uncomfortable in certain films, and it's not... When I feel uncomfortable in some of the films that I've watched, it's because of the gore and, like, all that stuff.
God forbid a film be conceptually uncomfortable. God forbid a film, like, challenge you on a level that isn't just, ooh, look how yucky this is. God forbid that be the case. That's really the whole video for him. He is just not a person interested in engaging with movies beyond a certain point. Like, if the video didn't make it apparent, like, I'll just show you some brief clips from his fucking tier list video.
Eternals. Great. I love Eternals. This was my favorite MCU film after watching it. Free Guy. Great. Ryan Reynolds is just Ryan Reynolds at his best. We are building lore and world building beyond Earth. Finally. Oh, I tell you what. I'm putting great. It's fun, entertaining. The Easter eggs were incredible, especially in that final battle. And you can't sit here and say Licorice was in the wrong when he's technically not, because he's just doing what he's supposed to do by serving the Celestials. And when certain Easter eggs were coming up, I lost it. It was so fun, entertaining. So like Obi-Wan Kenobi says, from a certain point of view, the performances were great.
Oh shit! Obi's coming in with a death blow!
M. Night nailed this one. This was one of his better ones.
He just enjoys movies for different reasons, right? Like, some people just consume media and they want something different out of it than what I want or what you might want. But that's really it for me talking about the movie. You know, great movie, but I figured since TV did a tier list of every movie he watched in 2021 that I would do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I saw 13 movies this year, or maybe it's 14. Is it 14 or 13? 14 movies. I saw 14 movies that came out this year. We're going to start from the bottom at horrible, the worst movies I saw this year. Red Notice and Venom. They're just boring. They just sucked. I wanted to see both of them because I thought that they'd be funny. No, they sucked. They were so fucking boring, dude. I think I'm kind of good at picking movies that I'll find funny that are bad. But these movies, those just suck. The bad tier, and all of these movies I enjoyed on some level. I really had a good time watching Free Guy. I went to the movies with my friend Zach, and I was smiling the whole fucking time. It was the funniest movie that I saw this year. I'm not really kidding. I really enjoyed that. It was hilarious, dude. You know, that's really what made Red Notice so disappointing, because this, you know, this fucking film, this, what's his fucking face? Oh, fuck, what's his dumb face's name? This fucking Ryan Reynolds film, this is the good one of this year. Ryan Reynolds, really just an iconic fucking actor, dude. Free Guy is going to be an iconic character for years to come. I also saw Old. Old was really funny as well. That was a good time. Both Free Guy and Old I talked about on my podcast, Poopcast 3000. Just check them out if you want to see some of that. Thunder Force. That one was funny. I think some people, like, they're like, oh, I can't laugh at bad comedies or whatever, but they're just funny. Like, it's funny. I don't know. It depends. I think it really depends. Sometimes a bad comedy isn't funny, but if it's bad in a certain way, it's hilarious. And Thunder Force was very funny. Godzilla vs. Kong, just a shit fucking movie. I saw it twice. Big mistake. Big mistake. Don't want to see that movie twice. I should have put it in horrible, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's as bad as Venom or Red Notice, though. I don't know. That was not as enjoyable, but it was funny to see a big monkey jumping around on top of ships. I also saw Cruella. That movie was also super funny, but my girlfriend got a migraine, I think, right after it, so it kind of soured the mood a little bit. In the mediocre tier, we have A Quiet Place Part 2. Really, this is not nearly as good as the other movies that I just talked about, but it is better, I guess. I don't know. I feel like weird putting it above the other ones, because I would sooner rewatch Free Guy than A Quiet Place Part 2. But whatever. A Quiet Place Part 2 was okay. It was like the first movie, but slightly worse. And the first movie wasn't like great or anything. So it was just like fine. I saw Fear Street 1994. I was like, this will be interesting. Spoiler alert, it was fucking boring. It was boring. Not as boring as Red Notice or Venom, but still kind of boring. Next, going up to the good tier, we have Candyman. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that. It's a very good movie to watch if you want to write a video essay. Next is Don't Look Up, a movie with a bunch of people in it. The first half is very good. The second half is okay. It gets a bit worse as it goes. It gets from like what feels like a very substantive like criticism of like the way that things operate, like the way that technology and different political interests sort of affect the way that people perceive things, and the way that different, incentives within, power, certain structures of power move people in power towards making certain decisions that are detrimental ultimately to everybody, including them. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the first half of the movie, and then it becomes a very sort of shallow thing where it's like making fun of, it turns into like a flat earth or debunked video or some shit. I mean, it's making fun of Trump people by the end, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of lame. Like, you're kind of just taking this thing and then you're just making it dumb. You're just making it dumber during the second half. It turns from like something interesting to just some kind of liberal bullshit that's like not that, it's just kind of boring. You've seen it before. But all in all, I think it averages out to be pretty good. I think Candyman's a bit better than it is, but it's a worthwhile movie to watch, I think. Next, we have excellent tier. We have The Green Knight and Dune, which are both kind of similar movies, I feel. Both very good. Don't have that much to say about it. I read the book for Dune. I wish the movie was longer, personally. I have some criticisms of it, but overall, it was a very good adaptation. It's, I don't think you could expect much better, and I'm excited for the next movie. And in the highest tier masterpiece, I put Licorice Pizza. It's my favorite movie that came out this year that I've seen. So there you go. That's my tier list. Not very many movies. I've already talked enough about Licorice Pizza. In the future, whenever I make more videos like this, I will probably write out more notes. I don't write out any notes normally, but I will probably do that more in the future. But yeah, I appreciate you watching. Tell me if this is, do you like this at all? I don't know. There's not very many people watching, but if you do like this, if you like this kind of video especially, then let me know. Even if you don't, I'll probably still make other videos like it, but I'd still like to know, I guess. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, I guess. Goodbye.